What's going on YouTube? Welcome to another oil painting tutorial. This time we are going to focus on simplifying the realistic painting style. So specifically I'm going to talk about three things to simplify realism. One is going to be light and shade. The second one is going to be large planes of color. And the third one is going to be subforms of value. So on my palette here, I'm going to use raw umber as my drawing color, and I'm going to dilute just a little bit with odorless mineral spirits, and I want to have just a very simple simplification of light and shade. So the placement is what I'm looking for right now. So let me just say one thing about likeness in case anyone is going to complain about likeness by the end of the stream. These are quick demonstrations. If you want the perfect likeness, best thing to do is just remain focused on only light and shadow, but for the purposes of the demonstration I'm going to go beyond that, but normally I would give myself more time. So if you want your likeness to be better, then just stick with light and shadow, or if you're really wanting to get super likeness, then just trace it. Okay, so now we've got the forehead placed, the eyes. This is my simplification for the placement of the head. Now I can move any of these shapes however I want. Again, just using raw umber to draw. With this demonstration, I will continue to mention the three things like I said, but as I paint, I will focus more with the painting and I will not talk quite as much unless you ask me questions in the live stream. Now, one thing to mention before I go any further, these are really nice and affordable brushes that I got from Amazon. No, I'm not sponsored to tell you this, though I wish I was. These are pretty affordable brushes. They're called something XTD brushes. So far I like them, but I've only been using them for a week, so take that as you will. I have links in the description box for you. They clean really easily. They act kind of like bristle brushes, but a little bit closer to the sable side, I would say. But they do take on paint a lot better than some other cheaper brushes. But I will use the brushes that I had last time that were like 7 cents a piece if you buy them in bulk, or I may not use them, but yeah, if you're wondering what this brush is, that's what it is. Okay, so now that I have light and shadow somewhat established, again, try to give yourself a chance to see the proportions. Painting is the art of seeing. So if you immediately start with measuring this and that, you're better off just tracing it, or better yet, just get AI to paint it for you. So just look at the placement of all of the features with your eye and give yourself a chance to actually see rather than going straight into measuring. But I mean, any technique that you like is valid so long as you enjoy it. Okay, so now I've got the light and shadow somewhat roughly placed. Now I'm going to go ahead and start mixing some color. So this is how I'm going to go ahead and mix the color. I've got cadmium red, cadmium yellow. So as you see, red and yellow make an orange. Now I'm going to go with raw umber. umber and white. And now I'm going to add cobalt blue, but you can use ivory black if you want. A little bit more of the raw umber. So the next stage is large planes of color. And last time I introduced a palette that had 20 something colors, which is really useful for different things. But this is more suitable to, of course, the limited color palette. Hey Tipu, welcome, welcome. Okay, so mix up as much paint as you can. And like I said, these brushes, they hold quite a lot of paint for being as cheap as they are. And this is about good. I want it to be a little bit warmer, and then I'm going to go and add white to it, which will cool it down, and it'll turn it into more of a kind of a natural skin color, like what you see in the picture. The canvas is toned neutral gray with oil paint. I toned it a long time ago, but I would suggest that you tone it with acrylic paint so that you can get started painting much faster. But if you have some leftover paint like I did, you can just go ahead and use it to tone your surfaces. But make sure you tone it, because this process really relies on toning the canvas. Alright, so now that we have the shape of the forehead roughly established there, I'm going to walk my way down towards the large planes. So please pay very close attention to the planes that I am following through. This is the glabella, and I'm going to go ahead and name them as I move further down. For the sake of this reference here, let's just let the forehead be this little triangle, and that's that. But the other planes are going to be more prominent. So this is going to be the glabella. It's rather small. It's not a wide glabella, so it's going to be about this shape right here. This is going to be the corner of the eye socket on one side of the eye, followed through all the way around, and see how it connects with the corner of the forehead right there, and follow through down here. This gives you an angle. The edge of the eye is going to exist somewhere right around there, but there is a little bit of a shape where this protrudes outwards over here. Again, the plane, the large plane that we're talking about, is the corner of the eye socket. Now this follows around the corner here, and this is going to be the cheekbone. So cheekbone, often referred to as the zygomatic bone, however you want to call it. You want to get fancy, zygomatic major, zygomatic minor, if that's what you want to do, or just cheekbone is fine. And this goes down. This gives you the direction of the forehead with respect to the bottom of the chin. Of course, you can just look at this angle here. The camera is going to distort it a little bit, but this gives you kind of an indication of where the bottom of the chin is going to land relative to here. Now, on the other side, we have the corner of the eye socket on the other side. Of course, we humans have bilateral symmetry like a starfish, so what you're going to see on one side is going to be reflected on the other, so it's useful to treat both sides at the same time. Promise you I won't talk so much once I get into actually painting this thing, but I'm explaining these planes for you. Again, cheekbone on the other side. Again, this orangey tone is just fine. We're going to let the tone of the canvas do quite a lot of the work for us later on, and you'll see what I mean by that. There's the bottom of the nose. And the mouth is going to land somewhere in this vicinity, but this is just going to be ballpark for us. Now there's the chin, and already right here, if I was teaching an in-person workshop and my students got to this level, that's perfect for day one. So if you are following along with this and you got this far and your simplification looks like this, stop right there, give yourself a pat on the back. This is a really good place to be. You're not caught up on little tiny minutia details, but you're focused on the big picture. And you're not using too much paint. Now this is something I should mention a little bit more with the realistic style. It's actually easier to have a little less paint but control it better, and I'll explain that a little bit more as I go. Okay, so now we have the large planes of color somewhat roughly well established, and now we're going to get into subforms of value. This is going to be the third thing that we're going to focus on, and that'll be it. That's going to be the simplification of realism. Once we get into those things, I'll explain it better when we get there. So we're going to maintain this color that we have, and now we're going to add more white. And you're going to need 2 brushes for this, and just 2. So this is going to be your light, and this is going to be your dark. And we can use just raw umber, red, and black. Raw umber, red, and black. These are very specific color mixtures. Don't worry about what colors I have on my palette. Just focus on what I'm telling you at the moment, mixing wise. This, by the way, is a palette, a wooden palette that I made myself. I'm currently selling paint palettes, so before we get into the next stage, allow me to just show off this palette that I recently made. This is walnut wood, and I even did a little engraving or wood burning on the back with my Shiba Inu there. I am selling these palettes, anyone that's interested. These are balanced palettes. Here's another one that doesn't have the engraving. This one is cherry wood. The palettes will be finished with a water resistant lacquer. As you can see there, a nice little shine to it. Again, this one doesn't have the little drawing on the back, but it is signed along with a number. This one is palette number 13. Hey, another person online. Yes, I am live at the moment. Live streaming. Like I said, I would bring these back, right? I did say somewhat around this time. Okay, so now we're going to get into the subforms of value, and this is going to be, honestly, this is going to be a stage where most portrait painters throughout history have been attempting to perfect, and it's a very difficult skill to put into words to tell you exactly what I want for you to get out of this, but I'm going to do the best that I can to explain it. So we added the white into the middle of the forehead. See how that made it a little bit cooler, but made this lighter, yada yada. Yeah, that's just a painting effect. That's just a painting trick. It's just an alla prima trick, just like painting happy trees with tapping motion, light into dark is going to create an alla prima effect. The effect is separate from the actual objective. The objective is making the forms as efficient as possible with the least amount of effort. That's hard, and I'll explain how to do that better, because this is going to be a skill building exercise. So right away, this light, and that light. Now notice what it did to this form. Now this is why there is a certain effect that paintings have in their earliest stages. And notice this, pay attention to this when your favorite art instructor or favorite painter is just getting started, and they introduce these tones, and it does something quite magical to the painting. It's hard to put into words what it does exactly, but there's something with the illusion, the unfinished stuff within the shapes tends to get quote unquote completed, I guess, in your mind's eye from a distance. Now, if you can capture these shapes really, really well at just the right spots consistently, this is where you're going to improve with your realism. Now note, I'm not really talking about photorealism or hyper-realism or anything like that. I'm talking about realism in the sense that a Rembrandt is realistic, not in the sense that a Chuck Close is realistic. Different things. Realism should be distinguished from photorealism. Like I said, we're going to let that tone do some of the work for us. And now we're going to continue to perfect the subforms of value. So the color is not going to change all that much, except for things like the sclera, which is the white of the eye, and the lips. But the local colors, meaning the color of the face, the average color of the skin tone, is going to remain the same. And we are going to resist going into a hyper level of detail with everything, and we're going to hone in on just this little window here, and you'll see how cool that's going to look in a really short amount of time. Okay, so now we're going to go to the dark brush. Remember this mixture, I said that it was raw umber, cad red, and black. That's what created this. Now the trick is you don't need a lot of paint. Rather, you need just small pieces of paint in really specific areas. So this is a case of work smarter, not harder. Start it off with the concavity of the eye socket right there, and that's going to kind of blend away towards the glabella, the corner of the eye socket. This is the edge of the form boundary of the eye. Same thing over there. And we're going to place these dark shapes around the corners of each little form boundary. So what is a form boundary? It is a form, think of a jelly bean, the edge of a jelly bean right there, and the front. So this is one edge of a jelly bean, and this is the other. Anatomically speaking, this is the wing of the nose, and this is the bulb of the nose, kind of like a light bulb. This is sort of like a light bulb shape. This goes down here. This is the edge of the mouth. And this is how you can accelerate the pace at which you produce your paintings. Now the top middle of the upper lip. Now this reddish color, this reddish brown, is very, very useful because you can transition it into the warm dark pink. You can also cool it down if you need to later. This edge right here. We're going to play around with this and let this just be blank for now. Okay, so how do I cool this down? Go right into your mixtures. I'm going to use cobalt blue, but you could use something like ultramarine blue. Mix it right in here. Any brand will do. I'll go so far as to say even a student grade cobalt blue will do this same effect. Alright, so we got some comments. Let me go ahead and read them. What's the worst paint tube color for portraits by Louis Wolf? I'd say the worst paint color is the paint color that you use the least because it ends up costing you too much money on your palette. Any color will do just fine. I added a little bit more cobalt blue. I don't know what's going on with the audio. I'm sorry if it's too quiet. I don't know why it would be. Yeah, this is another random person, another person online. I don't know who this is. This is just copyright free from Pixabay online. Yeah, I do read the chat. I was just talking a lot. My bad. But yes, I'm reading the chat. Stephanie Thompson, hello. Louis Wolf, hello. Yeah, if the audio is cutting off, then I guess you can't hear me. But if you can hear me, let me know if the audio is cutting off. Because if it is, then it's probably an internet thing. I don't even have a microphone set up. This is connected right to my computer. Okay, see how this got a little bit cooler? A little bit more towards the blue. Another person online, you said audio is good on your end. Good, good. But let me know, everybody, if the audio is messed up on your end. It could be an internet connection thing. Okay, so I want this tone to exist here, here, and all of the planes that are parallel with respect to this one. Because if you follow along with the direction of the light on this plane, then it should be the same in the areas that are similar. I don't know who the heck this model is. This is from copyright-free reference. Always remember that it's best to paint from life. But if that's unavailable to you as it is to me, unless I'm doing a self-portrait, which I do many self-portraits. I'll do another one on the channel soon. But anyway, this plane is nearly the same direction as the corner of the mouth right here, and this fits right over here as well. Yeah, sorry, it's really quiet there. Another person online, he said it's loud on my end. Left your ear in the military. Uh-oh. Hey Janice, you said the audio is good. That's good. You'd say the worst paint tube is the flesh tint. Yeah, so I'm gonna mix a little bit more black and put this right over here. Now see how this creates a string. Light, not as light, middle tone, shadow, and then dark. Yeah, you could say that you could buy flesh tint, and yeah, that any color that has like a mixture of other colors in it is going to be a little bit less useful to you than a pure color. So say you buy a pink. I don't really know of a pink color other than like permanent rose, which I actually have on my palette, so I'm not going to trash talk permanent rose. I like that color. But say you buy, I don't know, Naples yellow hue, which again I like to use, so probably not a good example, but technically it's going to be a little less efficient than buying cadmium red. There's a reason why the cadmiums come at a premium. Okay, so now we have these darks established up there and on the corner right here. But good question. What paints are the least useful? Something I don't usually think about, so good question or good comment there. Okie dokie. So now we have simplified the values. So you've got 1, 2, 3, and 4 being the tone of the background. So very, very simple. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know why your computer is very quiet there, Louis. I don't know. Or Louis. Palette. Okay. So basically, the palette that I have been using is raw umber, titanium white, cadmium yellow, cadmium red, and cobalt blue with black. So we've got raw umber, titanium white, cadmium yellow, cadmium red, cobalt blue, and black. I have not used my other colors, which are permanent rose, Indian yellow, phthalo blue, phthalo green, and dioxazine purple. Those are the other colors on my palette because I was painting earlier today. So don't worry about the other colors. Just focus on black and red for your darks, and basically orange and gray for your skin tones. Now going into further color mixtures is beyond the scope of today's topic. However, I'm okay with talking about it. If you want to talk color, I can talk about color all day. For example, I will now use alizarin crimson and black. Alizarin crimson and black for the nostril and the edge of the mouth. And then I'll go ahead and check the comments again. There's the nostril, edge of the mouth, and the middle of the mouth, why not? The tear duct as well. Tear duct right here, tear duct over here. So if you follow along very closely, I'm explaining every single step to you. All right, so what's in the comments? Let's see, what's your most used color besides white? My most used color is definitely cadmium red. Most used color is definitely cadmium red. Something got kicked off a horse's back. What was that? I don't know. I must have missed a comment up there. Another person online, you said you clocked out of work. Your brain is mush right now. No worries, no worries. I like to start off with softer edges and then introduce the harder edges. Another person online. All right, now white and black. Black and white. So black and white, it just makes a gray. Right here, and this is going to be for the sclera, the white of the eye. Now I'm trying to be as carefully as I can follow the topic of the video. So it's very easy for me to go on a tangent and talk about every aspect of painting that I can, but focusing on simplifying the subforms of value. Again, the final stage, that's where we're at right now. Subforms of value. And you can already see that without that much effort, this is already looking very realistic. But we're going to go beyond that, and it's still going to be subforms of value. And I'm going to tell you when to stop. And not stop painting, but stop adding stuff and start refining the stuff that you have. Oh, the wood palette. Louis Wolf. Yeah, this is a handmade palette. I made this palette. I'm selling palettes currently. So this is one of my handmade palettes. This is walnut wood. This is walnut wood that I cut using some machines and sanded and created a counterbalance. And I used a wood burner to draw my Shiba Inu on the back. But you see, this is all handmade. This is 2 pieces of walnut plywood glued together with a counterbalance. You cannot buy this palette anywhere other than from me. Just DM me on Instagram. I have some palettes. I have a 12 by 16 rectangular palette available on my Patreon. But this is a new model that I introduced on my last live stream that I've been testing. This is a cherry wood version. Cherry wood plywood, as you see on the corner there. The front face is cherry wood veneer, but yeah, these are my own design. I really like this design. If you want to buy a palette from me, let me know. If you are right-handed, this is what the palette will look like because you hold the palette with your left. If you are left-handed, then it is reversed. I can make palettes to order, and I also have some palettes already made. Cost of the palette. So with this size right here, this is a 12 by 16 size. The 12 by 16 is 85. I actually have not priced the bigger one yet. This is a more of a prototype, but you can get one of my palettes starting at 85, including shipping, assuming that the shipping is going to be $20 with priority if you're in the US. But yes, 85 is where the palettes start. Now I'm using a little bit of cadmium red and black. So you can get a 12 by 16 palette from me for 85. That is for a 12 by 16. And I'm going to list them on Etsy as well, along with commissions, portrait painting commissions. So a whole lot of fun stuff coming your way. Yeah, I can make the bigger palettes as well. The other palette I had last week, that's a 29-inch palette, a ginormous palette. And yeah, I can make that size as well. Of course, it'll be a little bit more. It'll cost more because it's more wood, so the wood will cost me more. But yeah, I can make a bigger palette as well. I've been testing this current model for, I don't know, like a week now. Maybe 2 weeks with my other version. But I tested it out by basically just using it all day and seeing if my arm gets fatigued at all. There's the edge of the face. Etsy, Etsy, I said Etsy, didn't I? No, Etsy. It's ETSY. It's a site that you can. It's basically like it's like a social media where you can sell your own artworks without having to create your own website. Okay, so notice I just put a midtone right there. And please, at this point, and this is going to be very important, super important for you to remember, to simplify realism and to improve on your realism today, like right now, this very moment, please do not worry about how did you mix that color. How did this person mix that color? It is not going to help you to paint more realistically if you are focusing on how did you mix that color. Color is subjective. It's a beautiful thing that it's subjective because it's open to interpretation. Value is what does pretty much all the heavy lifting for realism. But like we spoke about last week was pretty much all about color. But my form did not get this advanced this early on. Remember last week I said I had to apologize because the stream ended up being really slow. And now we're pushing through the realism. Make sure you have a light brush and a dark brush. And we're going to continue to refine the form. As I started off with soft edges, now we are going to incorporate sharper edges. And let me show you how to do that. So in order to create a sharper edge, mix more paint and thin it out slightly. So we're going to go with red and black, approximately right here on the value scale. And we're going to thin it out with a little bit of odorless mineral spirits. Not a lot. As you see there, just a drop. Test it out on one little spot of the palette. See how that's maybe a little bit too thin. Okay, now this is what we want. Apply a very direct brush stroke right on the edge that you want, like that. So that's going to be the bottom of the wing of the nose. And now mix the adjacent side. Go and do the same thing. So we're going to go white, cadmium red, cadmium yellow. And please put a lot of paint on your palette. Oil paint takes forever to dry, so you're not going to waste it. Just put a lot of it and don't be afraid. This much paint. When you're done painting, if you want to save your colors, just put the paint in a plastic container, airtight plastic container. Put it in the freezer or just leave it out in the container and it'll be just fine. Okay, see how this is thin? Now let me show you how to create a sharp edge right here. There it is. That is a razor sharp edge. And that's how you can create differences in your edge quality. And now we can change that color a little bit. And I'm going to go into a tad bit of cadmium red. And I'm going to just add that right here. I personally prefer palettes that look like this. And maybe that's too big for the frame. I prefer palettes that look like this, that have a counterbalance, as opposed to something like something that doesn't have a counterbalance. I like the classical look. If I'm doing classical painting, I like the palette to look somewhat classical. It's just my own aesthetic. So we added a little bit of that cadmium red here. Change up this color just a little bit. And we're going to add that right over here. Couldn't be any easier. Now, likeness. You want this to look like the person, right? That's what you want. Okay, so pay attention to the placement of the features. The eyes relative to the nose. This is relatively correct. However, this now is going to be something we can adjust. Please use your eye to do these adjustments. Now I'm going to add a little bit of cobalt blue into this mixture here. Like I said, color is subjective. You can add purple to that if you want, and as long as the value is correct, then you have no problem. These are very important things. These are things I wish that I focused on more when I was starting out with painting when I was a kid. But throughout the many years, what I've learned is that if you can focus on how well you can paint with these 3 simple stages, and if you can improve upon these steps, be more consistent with them, then you get better as a painter all around, whether you're working from life or from a photograph. Hey Louis Wolf, let's see, you wrote about, you said some rosemary. Yeah, those brushes are good too, but I mean, these brushes are like less than $2 each, so I can't really beat that. Oh, do I do critiques on Instagram? No, I do them on Patreon. All my personalized art educations on Patreon, which is linked in the description box for you. Instagram is basically where I post images of artwork or palettes for sale. Okay, so the mouth. Now the mouth is going to need to move up a little bit relative to the nose, and perhaps move a little bit to the left. Now let me show you how to adjust the color within your string. Find your value in your string of mixtures, which is right here, and just add red to it, and that's it. This should give you the color of the lips. Like I said, simplification is key. See how simple that was? And like I said, these brushes hold a lot of paint. Excuse me. They clean really easily. So I actually don't leave them in the linseed oil like I do my other brushes. Now we're going to add a little bit of white to that, and let's just see what that alone does. We may need to add some red to it later. These are XTD or XDT. These are brushes from Amazon, so I can't really tell you what the quality control is like with them, but yeah, I've got them linked in the description box for you. Just click on the little arrow button somewhere down there. It sends you to the description box. I actually bought you can buy a set of 6 of them for $10. I bought 5 of them. Well, first I bought 2, then I bought 5. So now I'm gonna have 7 of them, 7 sets of 6. I like them that much. So they're really good brushes for the cost. They hold a lot of paint. They don't wear out really easily so long as you don't scrub with them. With more expensive bristles you can scrub with them, but with these you don't want to do that because they're like synthetics. They are synthetics, but they get beat up like synthetics do. So let me check the comments. Let's see. You wrote one thing: since I got back to drawing and painting every day for almost 2 years. The battle between drawing from imagination and Barg. Yeah, I'd say there's always a duality between painting the realism that we want versus, something more expressive, I guess, from the imagination, maybe like painting a dream or something like that. So I totally get where you're coming from with that. Okie dokie, now we're going to start to add more form to each little area. So now the palette is not going to be as visible, but I'm taking right from these mixtures, and I'm going to explain it to you as lighter than or darker than. Lighter than or darker than. Don't worry about warm, don't worry about cool. Lighter than or darker than. So this is darker than I currently have it. And I'm darkening this so that I can have a darker value that I can curve the form up from. Now when I add form on the nose, on the nostril, or the corner of the eye socket, a little small structure that's curved like these two, I start with dark and then move my way up from there. Something like that. The specificity of the curve that you use is going to be determined upon your knowledge of structures. Basic structures such as cylinders, spheres, ellipses, which are basically just spheres, just distorted. If you can curve those structures, then you can curve any structure. Again, another word on likeness. If your focus is on the likeness, then don't do what I'm doing and go back into your light and shadow. And it's okay if you need to trace it. I have a whole series that I call cheat codes where I trace it. Now this is going to be lighter than it currently is. Remember, we're playing this game. Lighter than or darker than. Lighter than or darker than. And that's it. I'm making it that simple. What was the last comment? I don't even know. What did I say? I'm simplifying things down to lighter than or darker than. And I think when I was talking about likeness, yeah, that's what I was talking about before. Okay, here, lighter than. I was talking about likeness before. You focus on just light and shadow if your main objective is making it look exactly like the person. Like for me, I say that likeness is nothing more than the confirmation of an accurate drawing. But an accurate drawing takes time, and there's only so much that you can do with a painting in a short period of time. If your priority is on the realism, then this is definitely the video for you. If your priority is on the likeness, then check out the cheat codes videos that I have. They're called cheat codes, like video game cheat codes. Old master cheat codes, because that involves tracing. And you can get better likeness with tracing. And then you fill in the large planes. Now we're starting to create more curvature. Now this is going to be lighter than, and this is going to be the side plane of the nose. Forgive me if I'm still talking too much. I'm trying to explain it all to you. With these brushes, I'm not using so much of a scrub motion. I'm using more of kind of like a traditional paintbrush movement like that. Now the front plane of the nose is a little bit wider. And these are the subforms of value. Now when I say value, I mean lighter than or darker than. So this is now going to be lighter than. Play this game with me when you paint. Lighter than or darker than. That simple. Now This is why I started with this darker red plane, and let me show you why. This is going to become a soft edge as this curves in. Like that. And now we're going to go back to the black and white, and we're going to curve the eyeball. So just black and white right there. So it should now be lighter than the tone of the canvas. So remember, we're playing this game. Lighter than or darker than. And it seems really simple, but it's actually not. It's very difficult to do that task without getting distracted. Now we're going to introduce the top plane of the lower eyelid. Again, this is why I like these brushes. I can create a really specific mark with very minimal effort, and that's an attribute of a good quality brush. However, you can do this with a cheaper brush as well. There's no need to spend a lot of money on brushes, and in fact, I would suggest you spend more money on your paints and your canvases than you spend on your brushes. And me personally, I love paint palettes. I love the aesthetic behind paint palettes, so I've spent a lot of money on palettes in my lifetime, and now I'm even making them. But that is a personal preference, but I say that the palette is like the car. Do you like the way that your car looks? Do you like showing up in a nice looking car, or does it not matter to you? For some people it just doesn't matter, and that's okay. Now this is going to be a cast shadow right there. Now this is going to drop a little bit. So we're going to focus on just this little window. And let me take a second to mention the teacher of my teachers. It's always important to have a good point of reference when it comes to the techniques. And most of you already know the artists that I'm going to mention because I mention them pretty much every time. Nelson Shanks. If you look up Nelson Shanks and you look up his portrait sketches, he uses a gray tone and pretty much simplifies it. Just like this. And darker than right here. But this is much easier than trying to go in with what color is that? How did I get that color? How did he get that color? How did she get that color? Lighter than or darker than? Play that game. Now I'm going to move this eyebrow down. And to build your light and shadow in this stage, you can do that by just basically moving things around like I am right there. And we will start to incorporate part of the bottom as well. But I have to have some restrain myself to not put too much on the side of the face. Nelson Shank, legend in jail. Oh man, that joke never gets old. Please note that I have not thinned out the paint or added any medium anywhere other than this sharp edge over there. Now let's go ahead and curve this. But yes, Nelson Shanks. One of the greatest painters of the 20th century. Simplified the form so well. There's always so much to learn from the old masters. Okay, now let's go ahead and add some planes here. This is going to be darker than. Hey Grace, welcome, welcome. This is going to be darker than tone of the canvas. And I'm going to go back to the raw umber. And we're going to basically use this same value and push this up. See how I'm not doing a scrubby scrub? I had to stop myself there, almost did too much of a scrubbing motion. And just a simple paintbrush. Left, right, up, down, left, right. Like that. Purely because, again, these are synthetic brushes, really good synthetic brushes that I don't want to beat up. Now we're going to crawl our way up from the shadow. And I like to use a little spiral motion here. Every time I say spiral, it kind of reminds me of Spyro the Dragon. Anyone remember that game? Another person online said when the boogeyman goes to sleep, he checks in the closet for Nelson Shanks. Oh man. So again, a light brush and a dark brush. Now we're going to add some lighter than, so meaning more white, up here. Now it really is this simple. However, you have to learn how to restrict yourself from going into old habits. For a portrait sketch like this, where you want to prioritize the realism and not the color or the expression or other things, which we can talk about later, another day, another stream. You really want to focus on the three things that I mentioned. Again, what are those things? Light and shade, large planes of color, subforms of value. And right now, we're in the final stage. Subforms of value. Again, using the tone of the canvas just by dragging the paint down like this. Now this is how we create the illusion of form. Now, of course, with the likeness, certain things, like right here, this is more flat. Again, that's more along the lines of the light and shadow. Now this moves a little bit further out to the left. And we'll just blur this edge right here. This is lighter than. And this will start to curve. And this is lighter than right here. This is the plane change for the root of the nose. See how these are very small pieces of paint. So that's the difference between this style and last week. Okay. So now that we have the forms, now we can add some of the forms back there. And I'm going to go back to the raw umber. So just adding raw umber to the brush. And just a little bit of mineral spirits, again, just a drop. I had another person online that, I don't know, that one right there is beyond the scope of my expertise here. That one is beyond my knowledge. So let's add this gentle little Karen haircut and just let the raw umber do some of the work for us. Another person online, I know what you mean. And you called it right when I mentioned the haircut thing. No offense to anyone that has this haircut. Just let the raw umber do its thing. And just raw umber for this. That's how simple we're keeping the color. Just raw umber. Make it darker with more of the raw umber. Right there. So something that someone told me when I was an art student in Philadelphia. They said, and this pertains to figure painting, don't put anything in the background unless you are committed to finish the background. Whereas I, for pretty much forever, I would put in something in the background, even if it's just a little color right there. Now for some reason, it tends to work out better for a realistic portrait if you don't put anything in the background. Now when you're talking about color, that's a different thing, right? That's the color study. And a lot of my portrait paintings end up being just that, a color study. Well, when we're talking about a portrait, realistic portrait demonstration, simplifying it down like this is going to be more beneficial. Again, for the topic of realism. Still following what I was talking about, leaving this part pretty much simplified. I'm gonna add a slightly orangey tint right here. Yeah, that's kind of tough for me to not add stuff in the background. One of my favorite things is to add stuff to the background. But letting this function as a realistic painting, but be more of a portrait sketch, which is all you can ask for if you're creating a painting in a short amount of time. To do it well is a matter of picking and choosing what it is you're going to focus on. As you can probably tell, this is the point in the painting where I don't talk as much. But if you have any questions, feel free to write a comment. Yeah, interesting thing that I remembered that I was told in school, again with figure painting, don't throw in the background unless you're fully committed to finishing the background, which is totally the opposite of Nelson Shanks. He would put in stuff in the background in his portrait demos. But if you look at his more finished looking sketches, it's just this gray tone. Alright, we'll use one of the 7-cent brushes. Again, black and white. Dang, so according to legend, he applied the final touches with a stabbing motion. I never thought about that one. Makes sense, I guess. I could see that. I wonder if he got a lot of comments in his life because of the shanking motion. I never really thought about that. But yeah, it is pretty funny. Just like my name kind of rhymes with you party. Again, that's how I got through college. You party sounds like you party. Didn't really get invited to a lot of parties, which was probably for the best. I was not a cool kid. sweater with the words college. Did I? Maybe. I think I had a custom hat when I was in art school that said "You Party" on it. And then I remember my friend named Saul. This is when I was in school in Baltimore before I went to Philly. My friend named Saul ended up stealing the hat and wearing it around to mess with me. Oh, I don't know about the poster. I have no clue of the reference. I believe you though, I believe you. Yeah, never heard of that reference though. Now look at the curvature on the eye that we're getting with these brushes. Again, 7 cents a brush. And we're getting this level of control. Already much more advanced than what we had at this time point last time. The preppies versus regular people. Kind of, you know what used to irk me all the time was I don't know if it's still a thing, but back in the day, back in the early 2000s when I was in school, people would wear shorts with their hoodies when it was cold. I mean, like cold, like 30 degrees Fahrenheit kind of cold. And I think that was probably like a preppy kind of look. I don't know why people wore hoodies with their shorts with their hoodies. I mean, to each their own, of course. You said people do some weird stuff between 16 and 30. Change for the better or stay? I mean, it's all up to interpretation, I guess. What considered strange? Stranger Things. Now at this stage, it's all down to finesse. It's all about finesse now with the planes, and a lot of it has to do now with edge quality. And unfortunately, the further you go in this painting, when you're painting from a picture like this, the more you're going to have to make up. Certain forms are too flat in the photograph. So you're going to have to paint it with more depth. So right here, this is very flat in the picture. Kind of like the depth that you would see in a Rembrandt. That's what we're imposing, I guess, onto this image. Another person online said so far you've got coupons for donuts. I haven't had a donut in like a year, I think. Sometimes it's useful to flatten out the light when you have a 3/4 closer to, I guess, just a empty edge over here. It's better to just flatten that out sometimes. Almost the same angle as a girl with the pearl earring. Almost that same turn. girl without an earring. Yeah, that's a good name. Yeah, similar pose. A Woman Scorned by Nelson Shanks. Did he title one that way? He might have. Janice, he said it's something donut. Alright, so a lot of back and forth-ish stuff with these planes. I'm deliberately trying not to add any more information, but I'm trying to perfect what's already there. Two dozen donuts for a painting. I don't know that reference. I would hope I can get more than 2,000 donuts. Maybe 2,000 donuts. Oh, the song Exes Live in Texas. Is that where the donuts is coming from? Exes who live in Texas. Isn't that the song that says that's why I hang my hat in Tennessee? Each dozen was 16, so better than nothing. I see. George Strait Code could be a title for this painting. Funny thing is, a portrait sketch is would be lucky to get a title. It really does feel like a portrait sketch more than I guess a portrait painting. Usually I will do a so-called portrait painting in this time frame, but trying to push beyond where I've been, I guess. Oh, that's where that came from. Janice was talking about the 2 dozen donut coupons. Oh, that's what you meant by that. I was wondering what that was. I see. Oh, my bad. My multitasking skills aren't the best right now. Trying to focus on these planes. I'm deliberately trying to do something different than I have been doing. I actually looked at my paintings from the past YouTube demos, in particular the portrait sketches. You know, the series Portrait Sketch in Oil Colors. And trying to figure out where things could have gone better. And I think this is at least part of it, part of what can go better. So my bad for kind of zoning out there. I'm gonna have to mix something for the dark lights here. But yes, 2 dozen paintings is better, or donuts is better than nothing. Thanks, another person online. I told you it's the hairstyle. And again, nothing against all the Karens out there with this hairstyle. Like I always said, my teacher, one of my teacher friends, based in Baltimore, her name is Karen Warshall, and she actually did not like the Karen joke. A lot of people did make that joke, mainly because she would complain the most if a model moved. But yeah, my bad. So I noticed that the eye is a little bigger. Both of them need to get a little bigger. Not much, but a little bit. Add some eyelashes now. Still, subforms of value, even an eyelash. It's more of a value. Yeah, I mean, you can tone the canvases with oil paint. They'll be a little bit more absorbent, I guess. Well, this one is a good example of that, but the acrylic does just fine. But you can, if you haven't done it before, you can kind of test it out. Now, an oil primer, yes, like you just said, you said saving up to buy the oil. Oil ground is different. That's because the primer has more tooth to it. Even with acrylic, the difference between an acrylic primer and acrylic paint is there's more tooth to the primer. By tooth, I mean there's like more particles. It's more of a gritty feeling. Yeah, PVA glue is what you want to prepare the surface, especially if you're getting unprimed. You always want to add PVA glue before adding primer to a raw fabric. I'm just going to flatten out the forms or these curves just a little bit more. Just a few little adjustments and we'll call it. Oh, cool, another person online. Now you're in the live stream business on Twitch. Haven't been on Twitch in a while. Gotta check out your username. Don't worry, you'll get there. YouTube is kind of a tough platform, I'll tell you what. It's very tough. Oh, your name is Future Oil Painter on Twitch. Alrighty, I'll check you out. little touch here, the back of the hair, and that'll be it. Try to maintain it as a painted sketch, focusing on the simplicity of form. Alrighty, there you have it. Painted sketch. Like I said last time, it's not going to be a finished painting by any means, but I did do the best that I could in this was a 2-hour live stream. So once again, the palette that I used, handheld wooden palette that I made from walnut plywood, furniture grade, with a balance and everything, and I used a wood burner to put my Shiba Inu on the background. Like I said, I am now selling these wooden pallets, and you can get pallets starting at $85, including shipping, assuming that the shipping is no more than $20. Well, thank you, Vanessa. Thank you. Again, this is one that doesn't have paint on it. Again, I use a, you see the shine there. I use a water-based lacquer, so that these are water resistant. But anyway, this is about the painting, of course. So remember, the 3 things that I talked about was light and shadow, large planes of color, and then subforms of value. Subforms of value meant that all of these little tiny changes that I added were all about lighter than or darker than. Remember that little game, lighter than or darker than. Just think about, is the shape that you're working on lighter than or darker than the shape that you currently have? Or is it lighter than or darker than in comparison to something else? So just play that little game in your mind when you're painting. Is it lighter than or darker than what you have there? Well, thanks, Vanessa. Okay, no worries. Yeah, I haven't made any acrylics, I guess, because acrylics aren't wooden palettes, but well, yeah, keep me in mind if you decide to buy a wooden oil paint palette. Another person online, we can work some stuff out. Certainly veterans discounts or struggling artist discounts can apply, trust me. I know about the struggling artist part. It's a struggle for honestly a lot of us these days, so just hit me up. Send me a direct message and we can always work something out. Of course. But once again, thank you all so much. I hope that you enjoyed this live stream. And I'll see you again next time. Take care, everybody. Thanks for joining.